Hello and welcome to the only show where we like Friday nights as much as we like Jedi nights. I'm Matt,
I'm Luke.
And I'm Max.
and this is Force for Thought.
And I wrote that joke.
All right, hello and welcome again. Today we are ranking the TV shows of Star Wars. We are excluding two, which is Tales of the Young Jedi.
Young Jedi Adventures.
Young Jedi Adventures. I put on a couple episodes, and I think it's one of those shows also that is clearly giving. It's the difference between the Clone Wars, which is giving a message and then trying to teach something. And I feel like that show is trying to teach something to kids, and I feel like this is all stuff for
Reasonably
kids.
so. It's
It's a
But, like,
toddler show.
Yes, all of this stuff is for kids, right? But it's like, that's really for kids. This is a toddler show. And then we're also excluding Vision since it's not fully canon. And I think just across the board, all three of us, maybe wrongfully so, don't enjoy anime. So sorry.
I'm not into it. I've tried to watch most of Visions. I've seen probably most of them, but I have not
Yeah.
seen all of them, so I would not be able to
Yeah.
rank it properly.
Yeah,
I can't write off anime as a whole. I mean, when I was a kid, I watched like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, those technically
that's
count,
true.
right?
I agree. And you like
Dweeb alert.
Avatar a lot.
Avatar is
Avatar.
very similar to an anime, but I do believe it's
Yeah.
not considered an anime.
Oh, interesting.
no?
Either way, scratch everything I just said about not liking anime. But yeah, we're going to go through just like we did with the movies. I think this episode will be a lot less contentious between us. I'm very interested in seeing if we're going to get any ties. I have a feeling some of us will rank some of the shows similarly as well, but much like we did with the movies, we're going to go through by a chronological order of when they were released. We're also excluding the 2002 or 2003 Clone Wars as well, and starting with the other one was I don't know, the Disney one, but the not Cartoon Network version of it as well. So, what was it? Not Cartoon Network? I thought it was like
You're talking about the
2002?
Taranofsky series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Cartoon Network, right?
I think so.
Yeah, not that version.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, we're
I
excluding
thought you were talking
that.
about a separate show in addition
Yes.
to that. Okay.
Does
We can
anybody
cut
have
all that.
Does anybody have anything to say before we start?
I like all these shows, and we have to rank some at the last, but I don't want people to use my words against me as proof that I don't like some of these shows. Like, they're all really good, and I like all these shows.
Yeah,
This might be the first one that I kind of disagree with that. When we did the movies,
Yeah.
I was in that boat. I was like, even though like something is my least favorite, I still like it. There is two, my bottom two. I would say I don't like.
interesting. I agree, and I'm interested. I know what one of them is for sure. I don't know what the other one is, but let's get into it and find out. So, starting first with the Clone Wars. Obviously, it ran for 7 seasons. It changed networks 3 times, and obviously, it kind of laid the groundwork. This is we can get into it, I guess, in a little bit. But Luke, where do you rank the Clone Wars?
The Clone Wars is number 6 for me. 6 of 9.
Whoa!
Wow, that is so low.
Really?
I mean, this is like, to me, this is the world building. This is where Star Wars started. You love world building, and
I
this
do
is
love
where it
world building.
started.
And
All the
creature design.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, Luke.
There's a lot of... There's 7 seasons, and there's... It's not... It's an anthology. And as a TV show, I just don't like anthologies as much. I've never done a rewatch in chronological order. I'd probably like it more, but it should just be in chronological order. And that bothers me. And when I'm rating Star Wars, or when I'm rating TV shows, the structure matters. And while I do really, really like Clone Wars, there are others that just have a better structure and are just as good.
So it's been a while, but I did go back and watch it in chronological order after
Did
watching
you?
it all
Wow.
together. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, I think it was the beginning of season 2, maybe season 3, where you see the training of the ARC troopers. And I'm like, wait, I know these guys. Why are they just now training? And that's when I realized that it was out of order. So the second time I rewatched it, I did go back and I looked up a list of how to watch it chronologically.
Yeah.
And there's only like a couple things that really changed to make more sense.
Yeah.
For the most part, because I think like starting in season 4 or maybe 5, it is in chronological order.
Oh, okay.
So it really only kind of helps move around a couple of the episodes in the first couple seasons.
It is odd though. Like, it almost is more complicated. Can you imagine production schedule? I mean, I think they did that to have less pressure on themselves, presumably, so they can just kind of
I
go
agree.
and do whatever.
It was a very smart way of handling
Yes,
it.
I agree, and it is an odd. I was really shocked when you said it was number 6 because I feel like it is the first little inkling we get of world building and expanding what we see in the movies.
You've left me in suspense. What is it rated for you guys?
Yes, Maxwell, you want to go?
I have it ranked as number 2.
Whoa! All right, here we go, folks.
I like the Clone Wars a lot. I think the only reason I don't have it ranked as number 1 is because of the dip in quality. Well, no, it has a rise in quality.
Right.
The
I
dip-
was gonna say,
the dip
what?
is at the very beginning. The first
So it's not a dip. It just starts slow.
It's all uphill. The first like 2 seasons are kind of slow and they're not that great. But if the entire show was at the quality of seasons 5, 6, and 7, there is no chance this wouldn't be my number one. 5, 6, and 7 are such great seasons of just TV in general, let alone Star Wars animation. That I rank it very, very highly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I am somewhere kind of in between both of you. I ranked it as number 4 for me. I didn't get into Clone Wars for quite a while. I was, again, kind of a purist with the movies and whatnot. And I was like, oh, it's a kid's show, blah, blah, blah. I think one of the smartest things they've ever done was to do the animation style because they look like action figures. It's the perfect marketing for it.
Yeah, I was gonna go on a tangent because I don't like the action figures for the Clone Wars because so much of it is also in live action. But whenever I see a Clone Wars exclusive action figure, I'm always like, I just wish they were in live action so that I could have like a slightly more realistic looking toy.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, for kids, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Not for us adults. But like. Yeah, I think Clone Wars, when I got into it, it just kind of blew my mind of like, the Maul storyline. And I think it weaves it really well. It is a little bit lower. I don't think it would ever really match the number 2 spot or anything, or another animated show that I like a little better than this show because of the droid episodes, because of the Padme and Jar Jar episodes. Yeah. There's a lot of filler in those 22 episode seasons.
And the filler is like 3 episode arcs. So when you start a Padme Jar Jar arc or the Colonel Gascon arc, you're like, ugh, I gotta watch this for like an hour.
Yeah, it's a lot. And so I think that's why I rank it number 4. With that being said, it expands so much. It gives us Ahsoka, obviously, which now we're going to get paid off even, she goes through Rebels. She has her own show coming out. And I think, I don't know.
All the Jedi get fleshed out more. We get some great Kit Fisto content.
Good Kit Fisto content.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
With everybody. But again, there's not as many lows as there is highs, but there is a lot of lows, I think, in that show. Again,
to be fair, it's because there's a lot of that show. Because what did I say? It's 7 seasons
of any of the other shows. Yeah, it's definitely the most Clone Wars.
It's 7 seasons, which is I think a little bit long to be honest too for what it is. Again,
but I wouldn't have had them shorten it at all because it was only getting better. Like you can't go back and take away the first 3 seasons just because they started getting so much better.
That's true.
Exactly. But I have a really hard time getting past the animation of the first and second season.
Yeah,
like it's almost unwatchable.
There's like rubbery looking almost weirdly.
When we talked about Kit Fisto on a previous episode, I said that I didn't really notice the design change in Kit Fisto. Similarly to Clone Wars, I don't really notice much of a change in animation style.
Really?
Yeah.
So it doesn't
season
bother
1
me.
And the Clone Wars movie,
the Clone Wars movie for sure. Yes.
I like get a headache watching it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's like watching a PS2 cutscene.
Yeah, it definitely
that just won't end and get to the good part.
Yep, I agree with that. But that makes sense for you, Max, especially since you ranked Bad Batch Clone Wars season 7 is like one of your favorite seasons of Star Wars.
One of my favorite Star Wars merchandise that I have is my 332nd clone helmet, which is the clone trooper helmet with the Ahsoka markings on it.
Very cool.
And I have a giant poster in my Star Wars room of the last shot of the Clone Wars where you have a 332nd helmet in the snow.
Not the sand, correct?
Correct. And it's not on a pike either.
Okay.
It's just sitting in the snow. And in the reflection of the visor, you see Darth Vader walking away.
You do indeed. All right, moving on. The second animated show that came out is Star Wars Rebels. Maxwell, let's double down. Let's go with you.
I struggled with this because it's all just flavor of the week for me. I ranked Rebels as number 3.
Oh, okay.
And for me, Clone Wars and Rebels are very interchangeable. I've been going back and rewatching Rebels in preparation for Ahsoka, so I really wanted to rank Rebels higher, but then after thinking about it, I didn't want to. A couple things that Rebels does have going for it is that it is significantly shorter in length. There's only 4 seasons, and the first and last, I think, are only 15 episodes. So it's a lot more digestible, and there is a lot more of a consistent chronological through arc, which makes it easier to follow. But I like Clone Wars a little bit better. I don't know. That's really all I got to say about that.
That makes sense. Luke, where you ranking it?
I have Rebels as my number 3.
All right.
Yeah.
Same.
Big fan. I really like the consistent character arcs from season 1 to season 4. Dave Filoni has talked in interviews before about how the fans don't like characters when they're first introduced, like how Ahsoka was so hated when she was first introduced, and Dave Filoni would say to Ashley Eckstein, like, just relax, like it'll be okay. Ahsoka's developing and she's going to be an amazing character.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing about Sabine Wren when she was developing through Rebels, that in season 1 she wasn't much of a character, but just relax, like the fans will grow with the character, and she's going to be one of the favorites, and she is one of my favorites. Ezra and Kanan stories, they're two of my favorite Jedi. There's a lot, all the stuff with the rebellion. Like when this show came out, I thought it was just gonna be like a show about some rebels, but it's a show like about the starting of the rebellion. Like it has significant storytelling for the universe in it.
Exactly.
Could you imagine being Ashley Eckstein at like the beginning of the Clone Wars when they were doing the movie and everything, and she got that script and she was like, I don't know, Dave, and like this guy from Pittsburgh who wears a cowboy hat's like, oh, don't worry, they're gonna love you over time.
No, just trust me.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if I would trust that man, and now that man's like worshipped at every Star Wars fan's altar.
The wolf thing gets me a little bit. He likes wolves way too much.
Oh, he loves wolves.
He loves wolves.
There's a lot of speculation with the new Ahsoka trailer about the two bad guys, Balin and Shin. Or Skull and Hati are their last names, and those are the names of two wolves in like Norse mythology or something. And people are like, "Oh, what does it mean?" Because the one chases the moon, and the other chases the sun. And people are like, "Don't look too far into it. Dave likes wolves."
Boy,
that's literally it.
Dave, that's hilarious. I mean, that's very true.
That is hilarious. I've not heard that before. That is so funny.
Yeah, people are like, "Don't look into it. He likes wolves."
That's true. I'm gonna blow your mind. It's also number 3 for me. We
really?
all are in concurrence.
Unanimous.
Wow.
I love Rebels. I like Clone Wars. I love Rebels. To me, it's perfect. It's compact. You already touched on this. It's 4 seasons, which I think is perfect. It's nice and concise. I think the first 2 seasons struggle a little bit with having filler episodes with that 23 episode runtime versus the more compact 12 to 15 episodes. Again, Hera Syndulla is one of my favorite characters. I think she's great. I think she's a really badass pilot. I love Kanan and her storyline. I love Kanan and Ezra's storyline. I mean, we get a great mix of everything, and it is much unlike like you said about Clone Wars, Luke, is that it's not an anthology. I mean, full all the time, and we get some spin-off episodes, whatever, but it is a nice storyline all the way through, which is exactly what we're talking about all the time about looking in Star Wars, and they're able to do it in an animated show. And I think Chopper's hilarious, and I think the stakes are huge, and I think, well, again, one of the biggest deaths is Kanan, and I think they play it so well. And then you really do, like you just touched on, grow with all of these characters. Ezra can get a little annoying, right? But like he is a child who is dealing with a lot, and I don't love when they go to Lothal all the time, but it is an important touchstone, and I'm excited to see that in Ahsoka as well. But yes, it is number 3 for me.
You're a big fan of ships too, and the Ghost is iconic in its own right.
Yeah, I like ships. Do I say I like ships a lot?
I thought you did. Do you not? I feel like you always talk about the ships.
Do I?
Matt hates ships.
Yeah,
All right, never mind. Luke, you like the Ghost, right?
I love the Ghost.
I do. The Ghost is my second favorite ship for sure. But yeah, I like. Now I'm trying to think if I like ships a lot. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a conversation. Yeah, I'm gonna say I like ships. Yeah. All right, moving on to the next show. I assume everyone's favorite, Star Wars Resistance.
Well, I'm gonna gather by your tone that you rated this near the end.
Yeah, I'll just go with me since we've been kind of going in order. I could be wrong. Maybe you do like it. I'm so sorry if you do. I
like them all.
Full display. I have not seen Resistance in its entirety. It's one of those shows that. So yes. So I'll just go with this. The animation also hurts my eyes with this a little bit. I don't know why. It's very bright. It's a cool different style, but it to me also is an odd choice to completely do a different animation style. I don't know the reason.
They all do a completely different animation style. You just don't like this one. You can't knock the choice.
Wait, you don't think Clone Wars and Rebels looks exactly alike?
No, do you?
Yeah, do you?
No, I think they look different.
Fuck. All right. Yeah.
But I think Resistance also looks different, and I'll back Matt up. I think you can absolutely judge a book by its cover. Yeah. TV is a visual medium. If you don't like the medium, you're completely in the right of saying like, I don't like that.
It's fine to not like the animation style, but you were saying that you don't like that they did a different animation style, but they always do a different animation style.
I guess that's
But
true.
I guess you don't recognize that. That's
and
crazy.
then Bad Batch looks like Clone Wars and stuff to me too.
The Bad Batch is Clone Wars. Yes, that's the same animation style.
But yeah, so anyway, I don't have much say in this, so like I guess it's unfair to me to rank this so low, and maybe we can do a different time. But I thought it was something vastly different, and Max said it's mainly about racing, which really surprised me. And I know it seems like a more, I guess, like filler versus something that I really want when you're getting Clone Wars, when you're getting Rebels, when you're getting these interesting stories. You kind of settle on this racing story. It feels a little odd. So I don't have much to say, but I ranked it number 9, obviously, just because I have not seen it in its entirety.
I'll back him up because I had it ranked as number 8. This is one of the two that I would say I don't like. I don't think it's good. I personally, that's my opinion. I'm not knocking anyone else who might like it. I'm looking at Luke. But I agree with Matt. I don't care for the animation style. The story, it was just so unrelated to me too much of the time. They do focus so much on that the big floating ship that they're always on, and the
Castellan.
And the racing element of it and everything. And it's like it's neat for like a couple episodes, but after a while it's like, this is Resistance. Like, start resisting. Like, go to the Resistance. Like, let's see Leia, let's see Holdo, let's see like all these other things, and then it never just kind of comes to fruition in my mind. So I don't care for it. The characters they're all new, and there's a couple of them that I do like, but I don't like them enough to put up with the show, I guess.
I really like this show. I rated it 8 just because I really like all the shows, and there is a lot less to love about this show than most of the others, but it's a really good show. Season 1 is a lot worse than season 2, but it's following like the same Rebels structure, and then just it happened to get canceled after season 1 because it just wasn't successful enough. But season 1, they were on Castellan the whole time, and then like the finale of season 1, it rises up out of the sea, and you see that Castellan's the ship is actually a spacefaring ship, and they start going throughout the galaxy, and it's a lot more interesting, which is very similar to Rebels, how they stayed on Lothal and then started spacefaring. There's a lot of really cool elements with the First Order. You see the First Order up and close, and they are a lot more of a villain and a lot more like cunning and present in the galaxy than you ever really get in the sequels, at least explicitly. Some of the main characters, like one of the main characters, Tam, is seduced by the First Order, and she like becomes a stormtrooper between seasons 1 and 2. And it's really, really
That's fair. That's a good story arc. Yeah.
It is a really good story arc. At Celebration 2019, it was in between seasons 1 and 2, and I'd watched season 1, and I went to the panel for season 2, and maybe I like the show extra just because I have this good memory, but the panel was absolutely electrifying. Like, the whole cast was out there, and none of them are like wildly famous people, and especially in terms of Star Wars, like a lot of them were just really happy to be at Star Wars and in a Star Wars show. And the one actor, Bobby Moynihan, he has
Bobby Moynihan's in it?
And he has a minor character in Resistance, but I just remember the way he was talking about it. Like, he said he wakes up every day, looks at a picture of Orca, his character, and says, "I am in Star Wars."
That's awesome.
And the whole cast was just super excited. They showed the first episode of season 2 during the panel, and the whole cast like came out into the stands and watched it with us because it was the first time they were watching it too.
It
was just such a good memory. And season 2 was so good. The show was canceled well beyond when it should have been, and I think very similar to the Clone Wars or Rebels, it would have picked up steam after a slow start, but it just didn't get a chance.
I think that is great, right? The fact that you said that you like the show and then you have that gut reaction, right? It's like, that's what we always talk about with Star Wars. Like, if it's your gut reaction, you have that memory. That's like what Star Wars should be, which is
it's an instinct, a feeling.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I think, but I will, you know what, Luke, I will watch Resistance just for you to finish it out. With that being said, I don't think it can get much higher. I think, right, most of these shows are pretty stacked.
I still really like it, and I only rated it 1 above you.
Yeah, exactly. So
I don't care for it. Luke does, and we still ranked it the exact same. So that should tell you about the rest of the list, right?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. It's pretty stacked. So moving on to the next one, we jump into live action, right? We talked about this. It's 2019. A lot is riding on the line of what Star Wars is like live action TV shows, and so now we have The Mandalorian. Max, let's go back to you. Where are you ranking Mandalorian? The show that kind of started it all for live action.
I am ranking Mandalorian at number 4.
Okay.
I like Mandalorian a lot. I like the first season a lot. I like a lot of the second season a lot. And the third season had a pretty noticeable dip for me. There's still elements that I really like, obviously. But for me, there is a downward trajectory in the storytelling and in some of the various elements going for it. But I ranked it as number 4.
All right.
I have it as number 2.
There we go.
I think this show fires on all cylinders. I love it. I think we've talked before about how you guys see this perceived dip in quality in season 3. I don't see it. I think it is. I rated it, higher than just one above Rebels, and it's very similar in a sense that it's like, because you've said before that I'd never really thought about that Mandalorian's like a live action cartoon. There's a ton of great world building, great aliens. They always go to a new place. It's a bunch of new stuff, but still follows a consistent story thread through the series. And
it's great. I also ranked it as number 2. Luke, we are agreeing so much on this episode. I think it was hard for me because I love Rebels. But there's something about live action that I think prefer, which is odd because I love animation. I love it, like The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, South Park, Batman the Animated Series, my favorite show of all time. But there is something about Star Wars that I think it works a little bit better in live action because you're not able to have that filler like when you have a little bit of filler in Rebels. And I like the story and those characters maybe a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I love Mandalorian. It's great. It's able to bring Star Wars on a weekly basis in live action. How can you hate that? And it's a blast to watch. Again, it's a lot better, I think, when you think about it as a live-action cartoon versus, like, the most, if you would just have these higher expectations, it's a little harder, I think. But, yeah, no, I love Mandalorian, as we all do.
It's always really hard for me when, like, people say they don't like the animated Star Wars series because they don't like cartoons and it's too childish.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's not necessarily too childish, but also, if you don't like that medium, you don't like that medium, and you're not going to like the show. Like, just because
how do you not like cartoons?
Like, I know.
I mean, I hurt you as a child.
Literally, because it's like, how do you Batman the Animated Series, you have Spider-Man, you have X-Men the Animated Series, all these great shows that are just like superhero related. Not let alone South Park or The Simpsons, or I don't necessarily prefer Family Guy or American Dad, but I know a lot of people love those shows, or like Bob's Burgers, or like all these. There's animation is a great medium, and in Star Wars, it's a cheaper way to be able to expand the world. And then you tell me you watch Rebels and tell me you're not going to tear up when Kanan dies. It's just impossible. It's an amazing show. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Again, I was kind of not necessarily in that camp, but I was iffy on Clone Wars for a long time. And I dove in. I was like, I haven't looked back since.
I know. You have to be iffy on it because you think it's too childish. Like, I get it if you just like don't like animation. Not because you think it's too childish, because you just don't like it. Like, that happened to me with the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. Like, those are very good movies, but I just don't like the animation style, and I just don't like it.
Interesting.
And that's just like one of those things that you're not going to be able to convince someone to like something that they it's a gut reaction. They don't like the way it looks.
For sure. Interesting. I love the animation of that movie.
I know, a lot of people do. But it's very distinct and stylized, so you can see why I would dislike it when I like other animation.
Yep, it makes sense. All right, taking a step back to animation, speaking of, The Bad Batch, which is going to, end with season 3. There's 2 seasons out. We, I think, are all fans of it, but let's actually, no, it's diving with you, Luke. Yes, we're going back to you.
Bad Batch is at number 5 for me. I rated it 1 above Clone Wars because it's very much a successor to Clone Wars in the animation style and the characters and the themes and the everything. And it's just a more coherent story. It's not an anthology anymore, which is my only gripe with the Clone Wars and the animation in the beginning of Clone Wars.
But you don't mind
perfect in Bad Batch.
You don't mind losing all the various story, all the various characters and their stories as well. Because one of the things that I like about the Clone Wars is how ambitious it is and how you can follow in one story arc Plo Koon and then go to Kit Fisto and then go to Anakin and his Padawan. You don't get that in Bad Batch. In Bad Batch, it's just the Bad Batch. You follow these 5 people forever.
Yeah, I prefer that in a TV show.
That's interesting. I have Bad Batch ranked at the exact same spot. I have it as number 5.
I like how we're all basically on the same page, but we like it for different reasons now.
I just, it's so interesting to me that you like Bad Batch better than Clone Wars. I find that fascinating.
I think overall as a show, I mean, if we could take just season 7 of Clone Wars, I would rate that higher than the Bad Batch because it's the same quality, but with characters and stories that I'm more interested in. But the Clone Wars as a whole has a lot of stuff that I don't like as much, but the Bad Batch is just consistently the best parts of the Clone Wars.
Yeah. Bad Batch for me is number 6.
Really? That surprises me. That seems low. You're a big Bad Batch guy.
I do love the Bad Batch, but again, it's one of those things where I feel like it could be told in a different way.
I say that. We both put it at 5.
That's what I say. This is pretty consistent, and we all like it.
This episode is very uncontentious, but like, it is one of those things where I feel like the story could be told a little differently, but because I like the characters a lot. And in season 1, there is a bit of filler, right? And it's one of those things where I'm like, it could have been a really great tight 10 episodes. I almost prefer that. But I'm excited to see where it ends, and I think when it ends, we'll have a better look on the series as a whole. So we'll see. But yeah, I enjoy all those characters. I'm really interested in season 3 with the lack of tech as well, and so it's going to be a little different dynamic because my favorite character is gone.
Alleged lack of tech.
Alleged lack of tech, depending on what in what direction they go in. But
I remember when the show was announced, people were giving it a lot of grief for having such an uninteresting story idea, like these 5 very stock, not dynamic characters that have this one quality about them. And I remember even then, before the show came out, I was just looking at these people like, are you dumb? Like, we just had the Clone Wars, which was literally the exact same, a story about clones, and now you have 6 different clones as your favorite characters.
Yeah.
And I just think that was so silly.
One of my favorite things is to be able to point out, like, I think especially, again, this is definitely geared towards kids with a lot of adult themes, and it's scary, but I think being a kid, when you're like picking your character in the group to play as whatever, it's like, oh, it's like, oh, well, you have like the sniper guy, so you're gonna play as the sniper guy. You have like very distinct and defined roles, which is one of my favorite things that they do in the show, because I think it is super smart, especially when you're looking at it from like a child's perspective or like a toy's perspective, and it's really cool.
I feel like you were speaking to me there, which I appreciate, because you know that my favorite character is Crosshair. Because you could have said Tech, who I feel like is everyone's favorite.
It really? Oh, well, that makes me happy that
everyone loves Tech. He's great.
Which is odd though, because I feel like everybody should like Hunter. But no, I don't think
everyone should. You're right. They
I don't want to contradict the episode where we rated them, but I think Echo's my favorite, because I think Omega was my favorite.
Yeah.
And then I think Echo my next favorite.
Echo's a great choice. I love Echo. So then going back into live action, the Book of Boba Fett is next up, which I think I am up, and I can go. Book of Boba Fett for me. Probably not a surprise. I guess it feels weird to rank it right behind Bad Batch, but it's number 7 for me. I guess we're just kind of running out of places. But Max, I see you're shaking your head. I'm very interested in seeing this is your number 9. I'm just going to assume for some reason now. Book of Boba Fett for me is number 7. There's not many towards the bottom. Obviously, I guess there's only 2 spots left. Book of Boba Fett for me, we get what's his name? Oh my god! I just like completely blanked on everything.
Morrison.
We get Tamora Morrison, but we also get we also get Cad Bane. Jesus, we get Cad Bane, and I feel like we get a bunch of. Oh, sorry, I was wondering what that squeaking was. It was making me nervous. I was like, is that my chair about to fall apart? But we get a lot of boring stuff from Robert Rodriguez directing these episodes. We get a lot of weird choices, but we also get a great 2-episode arc, basically, of Mandalorian, which I really like. And then and it's one of the best Mandalorian episodes, I would almost say.
Yeah.
And it's sandwiched in between Book of Boba Fett. So for that alone, I think it's higher than some of these animated shows that I'll put behind it. It's obviously very sloppy. It's not ultra interesting. And the Tusken Raiders still will question me until the day I die. It's like, why are these in here for this long? But to see him riding on a Rancor, just like he did in the cartoons, I think in the Ewok special, the Christmas special rather, sorry, is really cool. So there's moments in there that I think salvage it. It's not a fun rewatch, but there's moments I will consistently go back to watch.
Yeah, this show has the most moments where I'm like scratching my head, like what are we doing? Like when Danny Trejo shows up as the Rancor Wrangler, and I was like,
yes,
what? Why are you here?
Yeah, because it takes you out of it a bit.
It does, but I also rated this as number 7.
Dang, Luke.
Yeah, we're really agreeing today. It feels good. I wish.
What did you have as your number 6?
My number 6 is Clone Wars.
The look of disappointment on Max. I'm
dying inside.
I said before the show comes out, and I've said it on the podcast before, this show was going to live and die with Fennec Shand as a character, as the number 2, because we already knew everything we needed to know about Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And if Fennec Shand was a really interesting character and had a lot of cool stuff to do and a lot of good character development, I think the show would have been really great. And Fennec Shand was nothing at all. We did not get any Fennec Shand content, and I was pretty bummed. And
yeah, she was super cool and kind of wasted.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the show. It's a super cool idea, and then it was kind of wasted.
Yes, we get the back-to-back scene of Boba Fett and Mandalorian battling it out on the streets, and that was awesome.
And we have the best when Mando says, "This is the way," to Boba Fett before they go out there. And Boba's like, "They'll kill us both," and Mando's like, "This is the way." That's the best. This is the way in a saga that has a lot of "this is the ways."
Maxwell, give us your number 9.
It kills me that you guys have this right below Clone Wars and Bad Batch. Those are my what did I say Bad Batch was? I mean, Clone Wars was my number 2.
Bad Batch is your number 5.
Bad Batch is my number 5. That is just such a long way to go to Book of Boba Fett. I disagree so much with a lot of what you guys are saying. We need to do an episode where we just review just Book of Boba Fett, because I could talk about this for a while. Other than Resistance, this is the only other show that I would say is bad. The show is bad. It does a lot of bad things for the franchise, and I say that.
What do you mean, like story elements?
It is the first show that has started to make good Star Wars bad. So one time I was talking to a friend of mine who does not like Star Wars at all.
Name them.
And he was saying, like, oh,
he's
like,
made up.
He was saying like, what would it take? What would it take for you to say that Star Wars is bad or whatever, that like Star Wars is no longer good or whatever it was? And I was like, well, like Star Wars is good though, like as it exists. So what it would take is for something to happen to make good Star Wars bad. And Book of Boba Fett starts to do this because you have this great iconic character, this man of mystery, Boba Fett, and then you start to kind of, reveal the helmet, and take away a lot of the mystery, and it just loses so much, and it just makes him such a less intriguing character. And now whenever I see him, I'm just so much less interested than I was before. But everything that you guys were saying about the things that you like about the Book of Boba Fett has nothing to do with Boba Fett. The only redeeming thing about Boba Fett is The Mandalorian. The 2 episodes with The Mandalorian were great because Boba Fett wasn't in it, and it was basically just season 2.5 of Mandalorian. And the last episode where we see Boba Fett ride a Rancor and where Mandalorian shows up to help Boba Fett.
Oh, I agree.
Everything else, it's not good. The storytelling, the pacing of it makes no sense. The flashbacks, every time you see the Tusken Raiders, it makes no sense. I kept thinking like, oh, they're laying the groundwork. Like the Tusken Raiders are still out there and Boba Fett's going to rally these Tuskens to come help Mos Eisley or Vespa or whatever they are. Espa, with the Mos Vespa gang, and which is another element, the Vespa gang, just like the colors and the
colors are bad.
It doesn't work. And they keep laying all this groundwork for this story with the Sand People that never happens, and it's just such a weird choice. Like why tell this story humanizing the Sand People? Like the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders are a group that like pillages villages. Pillages villages? I guess that makes sense.
I think that's correct.
They pillage villages.
The rural juror?
They kidnap people. They torture them. And they leave them for dead. And then we get this whole Book of Boba Fett story where we start to humanize them. But they still do all those things. Like Boba Fett never turned them around or anything. Like they're still people who will pillage villages, kidnap people, and kill them.
But he taught them how to ride a speeder like a bantha.
The
worst scene in that show, maybe.
What? I like
so
it like a
bad.
bantha.
It's not good. It's not good.
I 1000% agree.
I agree with everything you guys were saying about all the highlights. There are obviously parts of it that I really like. It's unfortunate that none of them have to do with Boba Fett. Cad Bane is great. Black Chrysanthemum is back. Is awesome. Did I say Black Chrysanthemum is back? Whatever.
He's black.
Black Chrysanthemum is awesome. I really like the showdown between Cobb Vanth and Cad Bane. Like all that's good. There's so much good that the show has going for it, but it's the Book of Boba Fett, and Boba Fett is not good.
I agree, but I think I would still rank it higher than Resistance because I haven't seen it, and then the other show that's my number 8, just because it's. You do go through, you get those better moments. Well, we can talk a little bit afterwards.
We're there now.
There are moments, but I will just say the reason I had this at the bottom of my list is because Resistance doesn't ruin anything. Resistance is a brand new show with brand new characters, brand new places. I didn't care for it, but it doesn't ruin anything. The Book of Boba Fett started to ruin an iconic character.
That is a great call. Going on iconic characters, the next show is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, dang. I didn't realize we were still missing this one. That's great. Number 4. I love Obi-Wan Kenobi.
All right. Luke's number 4. Luke, why do you like it?
It's just exactly what I want. It's a good meshing of the prequel era and the original trilogy era. All the characters are great. The emotion is great. The way they bring in Leia, and that was such a surprise to us. Like we had no idea the story was about Leia, and then it ended up being a really, really good story with Leia. And I don't know. I didn't think I was going to have to defend it. Where'd you guys rank it?
I ranked it at number 5 for me as well. With that being said, I think there is a bit of a... Unlike the movies, to me, I love all the movies a lot. For me, the shows are a little different where... I know, Max, you before you said you divided the movies in like you loved them, you liked them, and then you thought they were fun. I think is what you said.
Yeah, I had
maybe?
like 3 different tiers.
That's kind of how it is for me. Where like my first 4 I absolutely love, and then like the next 2 I enjoy, and then the bottom 3 are fine. Like that's, and so I can go over the full list later. But like Obi-Wan's the first one of the I like them. I really like Obi-Wan, but it's like it's a show where I'm looking back at moments, not the full show. And it sounds like I'm being like defensive, like okay, what you said. You don't have to defend it at all because like again, I really like the show. I think the score is fantastic. I like his relationship with Leia. I think there are some weird choices because you're getting live action stuff, and you know you're going to come to see Andor, and some of those sets just seem a little more. I don't know. Obi-Wan is very good. I ranked it at number 5, very close to where you ranked it as well.
Obi-Wan is good. I have it lower. I have it at 6, but yes, Obi-Wan is good. I do agree with you there. This one is a little harder for me. I felt like the movies, when we were ranking those fell very easily into their tiers, whereas this one, there's probably a lot of gray. But Obi-Wan, I really liked. I like everything about it except for everything with Reva. And we reviewed Obi-Wan, and I kind of touched upon it then, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but just everything with Reva doesn't make sense. Her backstory was convoluted. The way she was written, directed, some of her acting, it was like it always sticks out, and it's not good. Luckily, everything else for me works, like you guys said. Like everything with Obi-Wan, Vader, Leia, all that works. The final confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader is amazing. I've gone back and rewatched that numerous times. As well as the fight between Reva and Vader. I also like that fight a lot too. I think that's really good. But yeah, everything else, it's just kind of brought down a lot by Reva, unfortunately.
I think it's one of those things where Reva's fine, like I said, it's very muddied, but like you want to see Obi-Wan and Vader, and it makes sense that you have like another catalyst kind of person in here to introduce them to you, like the audience. But like, I really just don't. I kind of just want to see Vader and Obi-Wan at this point, you know. And I know it's like getting somebody else, but
I don't see how they could have done any more Vader and Obi-Wan
I know,
stuff.
I agree, but I want it. It's the idea of it, because I 1000% agree. Like, it doesn't actually make sense.
Part of that's because of Reva, though. I think it's because you see Reva and you're like, just give me more Obi-Wan and Vader.
Yeah, and again, I think going back, my biggest thing with Obi-Wan is that it should have just been a movie. Like, that's the thing, and that's why it's like maybe we didn't even need her if it was a movie, or if to expand her, or I don't know, make her. I don't know, condense her story so it's more obvious of what she needs or wants or her goal. It's.
That said, everything I'm saying is just justifying as to why I ranked it as number 6th. I still really like Obi-Wan a lot.
Yeah.
I like the show a lot.
Yeah. I like that you said 6th, because it sounds like you were going to say Sith. Number 6th. And going to, I'll just lay it out on the table. My favorite show, which isn't surprising, the next one is Andor. I rank this as number 1.
I'm sure we all did.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Yeah. Unanimous. I kind of assume.
I assume that's the first one we all put on our list when we're rating our.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was the most obvious.
You go from there, right? And it's one of those things we talk about this podcast a lot, and it's like with all these shows, they're amazing, right? But there is a clear distinction with Andor, and it's like I want more of that. I don't want I liked Obi-Wan, but it's like Obi-Wan, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian live together, and there's nothing like Andor yet in live action or in TV show rather. And it's like I just want more of it. Like every set feels very full. Like I like Obi-Wan. Sorry, this sounds like I'm bashing it. It's not. It's just like when they're getting, and it makes sense for the scene. But when they get stopped at the checkpoint in the desert, yes, it's like that. This felt like a California desert with one set piece of a gate. In Andor, I never get taken out of it. Every single shot, every single scene, every single frame is purposely done and looks full and like it's living.
Yeah.
And I've never taken out of it, and it's a beautiful show. It's beautifully written, acted, directed. Like, it looks amazing. We've talked so much about Andor, and I don't want to stop.
Not only are there times where you're not, that's confusing to say. Not only are you not taken out of it, but I feel like there's so much that like pulls you into it.
Yeah.
Because everything with Mon Mothma, I did not have high hopes for.
Yep.
I was excited about it because I was like, oh, that's going to be cool. Like, I'm interested in the political intrigue and everything, and hoping that they can do it a little bit better than like the prequel movies, right?
Yep.
But Mon Mothma was my favorite part of Andor. every scene that she was in, I was like excited to see her again. And that's crazy considering like all the adventures that Andor went on, all the stuff that Luthen is up to. But every time Mon Mothma was there, I was like, oh, I was like rubbing my fingers together.
I know,
like, this
which
is gonna be good.
And she's going to be in Ahsoka, and I'm so excited to see her there, especially with the writer strike, actor strike going on. Andor obviously getting more delayed for season 2, which is
that's too bad,
making me really hurt because like it is such a great show, and I feel like as more time passes, it's gonna be harder to convince people to hop on that train because I mean we only get one more season anyway, and so I'm just like I really don't want people to fall off the train even more and it be lost to Star Wars history.
I kind of disagree. I'm not too worried about the strike. I think a pause button is okay. I think it might be necessary too, even for Star Wars. I think if a writer strike occurred before Book of Boba Fett, maybe we would have gotten something a little different. If everyone got to go home and kind of like just think for a couple months before putting pen to paper, that might be good. So I'm not too worried about it. Like obviously, as a fan of Star Wars, I'm disappointed that I have to wait a little bit longer to get more content. True. But I think it'll all be for the better.
I just mean like because season 1 wasn't necessarily. I think you have like hardcore fans who love it like we do, but I think you didn't get much intrigue from the other people. Well, Mandalorian's clearly the more popular show, and I just mean like I don't want more time to pass on people to forget about it and be like, oh, that show is still around or came back out or what happened with it? It's been like 2 years or something. I just don't want that to happen with this show because it is worth it.
It's so well received. Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. It was just nominated for an Emmy, which is huge. I really hope that it wins. Although seeing some of the other shows in that category, I'm like, but something is good when the internet is behind it, because there's nothing that the internet loves more than trying to shit on Star Wars.
Yep.
Right? You can find endless video essays explaining in very detailed analytics or whatever why something here is objectively bad, right? And I feel like Andor was the first one where everyone was like, oh, this is actually really good.
Yes, please watch. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Andor overall.
Yeah. That's true.
Like what you were saying about Mon Mothma, like even the potentially boring parts are so captivating. Like for me, what comes to mind is Cyril Karn, who's a very interesting character.
We know you're a huge fan.
I've talked a lot about Cyril Karn, but also
he is a bad guy.
Also, Dedra Meero, like that could be a very generic. Yeah. The Empire is trying to find Cassian, but she's like uprooting the entire rebellion. Yeah. And that scene with her aide where they're like, it's too random to be random, and I'm just like leaning in, like, oh my god, it is.
Yeah. It's so Oh god, I love Andor.
Me too.
There was something else I was gonna say about it. I don't even know, but I'm sure we'll talk about it again very soon.
And we've talked about how it's a prequel based on who's probably the least interesting character from Rogue One.
Absolutely.
Yet immediately becomes everyone's favorite TV show.
Yeah,
it speaks a lot to the execution of the show. I feel like
we want and need more shows. I think like that. Yes, I mean also it got nominated for best drama in the Emmys, which is insane.
Yeah.
Star Wars usually is nominated, right? If anything, if it is nominated,
that's like the Emmy category, right? Like that's like the equivalent to like Best Picture.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, usually Star Wars is getting. I'm saying we, like we're part of it now.
We did this, boys.
We did it. Hey, we did. It's not. Is it a coincidence that we started a podcast and all of a sudden Star Wars is getting nominated for best?
It's too random to be random.
It's too random.
We actually have a lot of the Academy that listens to our podcast.
Yeah, we have an FYC campaign.
Oh, Andor really is good.
Yeah, Sway really swayed me.
Who do you know who some of the other nominations are in that category though?
Yeah, it's The White Lotus, which is a great show on HBO. And
boo, Andor.
I do love Andor, which is my second choice.
I've never seen any of these other shows, so I'm just gonna boo them all.
You're rooting for White Lotus over Andor?
No.
Oh, okay.
I like White Lotus, but I'm rooting for Succession because it just is the best show. One of the best shows ever made.
I haven't seen White Lotus or Succession, but I know that they're very good.
They
are.
I
know that people speak very highly.
I
would
either,
love if Andor won.
But, and how dare you root against Andor?
I know. I never thought I would see a world.
Better Call Saul too, right?
Better Call Saul, as well. And there's obviously
I do love that show.
But it is a stacked category, and for Andor to be nominated in that is like absolutely insane, to be honest. And then. But it absolutely deserves it. I mean, we're talking about it's our favorite Star Wars live action show, but unanimously between the three of us. Which, even though we all love Star Wars, we disagree a lot on Star Wars or why we like it. And yet, this is the perfect crux of everything that we love. And then also Obi-Wan, not to gloss over that, was nominated for best limited series.
Was it really?
Yeah, which is also huge. Yeah. And that's also a stat category as well. And I feel like that's 2 Star Wars shows are
does
nominated?
Does that lock in Kenobi to only being a limited series? What are the rules with coming back with a second season?
It's really dicey because Big Little Lies and White Lotus were, I think, nominated and won for Best Limited Series, and then came out with a second season.
Oh, really?
Yep. Because that's
so Kenobi 2 is still on the.
Oh yeah, it does not lock you out of it.
That's good.
If anything, it's like but it's a little weird. That's like if it wins, it's like yeah, we should bring it back. It's like yeah, but like you only bring it back because it won an Emmy for limited series. So do you see the contradiction?
Yeah.
It's funny. Very odd. Anyway, definitely a shout out to those shows. And so moving on to the last show that we are going to be talking about, which is an animated show, which is only 6 episodes, which is Tales of the Jedi, recently released. I forget necessarily whose turn it is, but anybody have strong opinions?
Yeah, I rated it last. It's my number 9.
All right.
I was kind of hoping we'd save Andor for last so we wouldn't end the episode on a bummer.
Know.
It's good, but it's like how I don't like the Clone Wars that much because it's an anthology. This is like an anthology of Clone Wars, which is already an anthology.
Yeah.
And it's the Ahsoka episodes. I mean, I like it all. I like watching it, but it's like none of it is that surprising. Even the Dooku stuff, it's like, oh, did you know that Dooku was disillusioned with the Jedi? And it's like, yeah of course I knew that. The Yaddle stuff is great. And I mean, I like all of it, but like as a TV show, it's got to be my least favorite because it's barely a TV show. It's just a series of shorts.
So it's also pretty low for me. I have it ranked as number 7. Tales of the Jedi for me is I'm trying to think of how to word this. It is the last show on my list that I would say I like. Of the shows that I like this one the least. Below it are Resistance and Book of Boba Fett. I don't like those shows. Tales of the Jedi, I like. It is the first one that I like, but it's still not great for all the reasons that you said. But I will say it doesn't ruin anything, right? It just adds a little bit more context, which just at the most might be unnecessary. But you're still getting like some good Dooku content, right? Nothing shocking, like you said, but it's still good. Same with Ahsoka, but it doesn't take anything away from me. So for me, it's unnecessary, but that's the worst thing I can say about it. Whereas Resistance and Book of Boba Fett, like I said, I would say those are kind of bad. So
yeah,
I have it as number 7.
It's like Matt, you've said a lot before that Andor is like a steak and potatoes meal, and Mandalorian is like eating fast food.
Yeah.
Tales of the Jedi to me is like just eating like chicken broth. Like it's solid. There's no reason to dislike it.
I would
say no one's gonna get excited about it.
I would say it's just the cherry on top. There's no substance to it, and you wouldn't snack on it. But if you like Clone Wars, well, there you go. That's a cherry on top.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
cool.
good.
It's a little more background into Clone Wars for you.
I see. This is something weird. It's like I don't even think it's a cherry on top. I feel like it's like the last little goop at the end of an ice cream sundae that you're like, yeah, I guess I'll eat it because like
you want more, fatty.
Yeah. I think Tales of the Jedi it expands the world, right? Just like the world building and everything, and yet it should be exciting. And it's 6 episodes, and Star Wars should always excite you. And for some reason, every single time I'm watching it, there's no stakes. You finish it, it's quick. I get it. It's fun to watch and stuff too. But I also rank this at number 8. Sorry, I should say that. And so yeah, I know it's a quick watch. It's totally fine. I have nothing really for it or against it, to be honest. And I think that might be the problem with it. Is that like nothing is super interesting. You get these little vignettes. Honestly, even the first 2 episodes, it's just like with Dooku and with Ahsoka, it's like.
But to be fair, it's not like they marketed it or wanted it to be anything more than this.
1,000%.
Like they wanted it to be just a cherry on top. So you can't fault them for it.
1,000%.
I'm glad we got
That's
it.
a good point. Yeah.
With that being said, though, I'd rather have their time, energy, and resources go into something more like Rebels that is impactful, that is crafting the stories.
That's
and
true too.
Fair.
Yeah.
Same thing with like with Visions. No offense, Visions is fine. I think it's cool with the animation style and what they're doing. But like with all these kind of random like one-off shows a little bit, I'm just like combine those resources and make something amazing. You know, I don't think we have room, especially with this I hate to say like toxic fandom sometimes, but like with like people that are like looking to tear apart Star Wars, let's just give them something like really quality and not have your arms in like 1,000 different pots, kind of.
Yeah, because they're trying to rush to market, right? They just need something out there every however long of all sorts of different styles, right? They need a kids show, they need an animation show, they need a live action show, and it's like at some point in a meeting, someone was like, okay, we just need an animation show. Doesn't even need to be good. What do you guys have?
Yep.
And someone was like, how about Tales of the Jedi? We can do some like background on some of these Jedi characters from the Clone Wars. And someone was like, yep, that's great. Go forward with that.
Like when you watch a trailer for a TV show or a movie, you're tearing up. You're getting excited. That's all we're going to talk about. If Tales of the Jedi Season 2 trailer comes out, I don't even know if we're going to text about it, to be honest.
No, we will, because if they do Season 2, it won't just be Count Dooku and Ahsoka. Because I remember when they announced it, they didn't give you any story details. They said, we're going to have a show called Tales of the Jedi. And I was like, oh my God, is it going to be like Ben Solo and Luke Skywalker in the sequel era? Or like Rey Skywalker post-sequel era? And it could have been so many interesting things. And then it was just 3 episodes about Ahsoka, who is probably the least deserving of more content because we have so much already.
That's a good point.
And Count Dooku, who is interesting, but my God, when they first talked about this, I was foaming at the mouth thinking that we were going to get some Kit Fisto content for the first time in a long time, and I'm going to fall for it again when they announce because I think they have announced Season 2.
Yeah, I think they're doing Season 2.
And God, I hope it's Kit Fisto.
But my only gripe too is the poster is so cool. And I think that's the coolest part is the poster, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, like you said, Matt, there's no stakes to it, which is unfortunate. And like Luke was saying about Count Dooku, like, oh, did you know he was disillusioned with the Jedi? Like, yeah, everything they show, it's kind of like, well, yeah, we already knew that. Like, it's cool to flesh it out a little bit more, but yeah, give us a little more stakes or throw us a twist, something a little bit different.
Yeah, because like even the twist, which if you call it a twist, but Yaddle's death scene, which was probably the best episode, and I really liked it. But like everyone knew that was coming because like they had this Tales of the Jedi show, and then you saw the trailer, and I feel like it was like Dave Filoni just like looking at me like, hey, Yaddle's in this, that character that we saw in episode 1, but not 2 or 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's odd. Yeah, this is a weird note to go out on, I guess. But Tales of the Jedi, what are you gonna do? So I have the official ranking, and I'd be interested in seeing what Patrick thinks of this. The ranking of Force for Thought is my exact ranking of how I rank these episodes of these shows.
No way.
I need a math check.
Yeah, fact check that.
The exact same.
I haven't been keeping up.
That is crazy.
So what? So go through with it then. Starting at number 9, what do we have?
Starting at number 9, we have Resistance. Obviously, we all ranked it pretty low. It's kind of it's basically we have for Resistance we have that's ranked at 25. Adding the numbers up. And then at number 8, we have Tales of the Jedi. Again, nothing really significant here, folks. I feel bad saying that. Number 7, we have Book of Boba Fett, which again, with those 3, that's like the reason why I would rank Book of Boba Fett higher, because all the reasons we just gave for Tales of the Jedi, and also Resistance, the same thing. Number 6, we have The Bad Batch. Number 5, we have Obi-Wan. Number 4, we have Clone Wars. Number 3, we have Rebels. Number 2, we have The Mandalorian. And number 1, of course, we have Andor.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my exact ranking. That's insane.
That is insane.
And looking at my list comparing to that's not too crazy.
No, I mean, that's why I think
I only had a couple that were like switched here and there, and the biggest dip for me was Clone Wars. I had as number 2, and you said we have as number 4.
Yeah,
I have it as number 6. So that adds
makes
up.
sense. Yep, that's how averages work.
And I had it as number 4, so really in between there.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, all those.
I'm happy with that.
Yep, me too. But what I've realized, to be honest, ranking these, and I've never really pitted these against each other. Sometimes I'm like, oh, in my mind, how would I rank the animated shows? How would I rank the live action shows? And so I think coming up with this list is like, I really enjoy Star Wars shows, obviously, but I think we do need a little bit more stakes in it. I think we need a bit more structure, and I think in the live action stuff, we need more things like Andor, because I'm looking at my list again, and I really love, to me, Andor, Mandalorian, Rebels, and Clone Wars. I absolutely love. I really like Obi-Wan and Bad Batch, and then I'm fine with Book of Boba Fett, Tales, and Resistance. And that's like not a great average for being fine with 3 out of 9, I think.
Well, it's just about your sensibilities.
Yes, absolutely.
That always bothers me when people say, like, as soon as the first good movie comes out, they say, this director needs to be doing all these movies now.
Yeah.
Because there's room for all of this. Like, Andor and Mandalorian are of different qualities, but they're also of very different subject material and style.
Yeah.
And the animated series especially. Boba Fett, I'll grant you, that is the same style, but just kind of worse quality. But most of these, like Kenobi, I don't think is... It's just the style that it was made. It's like a single character's arc as opposed to like an ensemble. And
I'd be fine with more things like Obi-Wan, even, honestly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Just, like, the fact that, like, to me, again, and I think, well, just all of us, I guess, we all ranked Book of Boba Fett, Tales and Resistance as kind of throwaways. And I'm like, 3 out of 9, you know.
That's what I was saying at the beginning of the episode. None of these are throwaways. They just have to be at the bottom of the list because something has to be at the bottom of the list. I like all of those shows.
That's true. I also really like what you just said about how, like, every director, everyone needs, like, this person needs to direct everything now because they're so amazing. It's like, no. They don't, though. It's we don't need Chris Pratt in every single movie anymore. I mean, and the world has seen that, right? I mean, he was in a bunch of random movies that no one cared about. Same thing with Tom Holland. It's like, Tom Holland needs to be in everything because he's so amazing. It's like, well, maybe a little bit goes a long way. Like, you know what I mean? You need just, like, pacing, right? And it's the same thing with, like, any director who's like, this person's the best. They need to be in everything. It's like, let's just slow down and actually make sure what makes sense for Star Wars.
I like trying to press back on people who are very anti-Kathleen Kennedy, being like, oh, Kathleen Kennedy needs to get fired or resign. Everything she touches is horrible. Because it's like, well, who do you want to replace her?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes people don't have any idea. They're just like, I don't know. I just don't like her. And it's like, okay, well then, like, I think you should come with some constructive criticism rather than just like trying to point the finger at somebody.
Yeah.
Or what they say is Dave Filoni. Everyone says, oh, Dave Filoni needs to be running the whole thing. Dave Filoni loves Star Wars. He'd be great, yada, yada, yada. But it's like a totally different skill set. And I'm like, I don't think Dave Filoni should be doing that, if I'm being honest. He's a good creator.
Yes.
Give him all the animated shows. And let's wait to see Ahsoka first. But I think he's probably going to knock it out of the park. But let's have him just be a writer and a creator. I don't think managing Lucasfilm is a good spot for him.
Why do we even know who Kathleen Kennedy is, to be honest, right? She kind of does put herself out there, but like, she has like such a random job that like, why do we know who the hell that is, really? You know what I mean? Like,
I know, because people need someone to blame when they don't like something.
Exactly, yeah. And it's so weird. And it's like, no, Dave Filoni has a different, again, like you just said, Max, a different job, a different skill set. And it's like, the intricacies of what she actually does would only deter Filoni to be able to do what we want him to do, which is create more content. And if he's running stuff, he's sure as hell's not going to be doing that. He's just going to be approving stuff and going to be stressed out of his mind, which is exactly why he left Bad Batch, right?
Is that he was overworked? Yeah,
exactly. And so it's like, add on running everything. There's no way. Yeah. Also, Ahsoka is going to tip those scales as well. Like there's no way it's going to be.
I think it's going to be better than Andor.
Oh, do you really?
I don't.
I was like, whoa.
I do think it'll be better than Mandalorian. I think it'll be my number 2.
You think it'll be your number 2?
Yeah.
Because we have that built-in nostalgia for Rebels already. And
probably.
To be honest, the way the trailers look and the nostalgia of loving being able to see Hera, being able to see Sabine, being able to see Ahsoka and whatnot, and Chopper so far in the trailers, maybe a little bit of Ezra, maybe a little bit of Zeb, maybe Kanan Ghost, we'll see. I don't see it not being able to be in the top 3.
I know. It reminds me of when The Force Awakens was coming out, and my friends knew that I was like really, really into Star Wars, and they were like, "Do you worry that it's going to come out and it's going to suck?" And it's like, no, I've already seen the trailer. I already love this.
Yeah.
Like, even if it is a lower quality than I want it to be, I already love it.
Yeah. It's like we like Star Wars, right? Like it's like I think I've touched on this a little bit, even maybe in this episode, or maybe it was, I don't know, these episodes are blurring together and these conversations in and out of podcasts are blurring together. But being a Star Wars fan in the fandom and then being a Star Wars fan of the movies is very different, I think. And I think people have blurred lines of those because people are like, I think they like the idea of Star Wars and they're like, oh yeah, Luke and Leia are brother and sister. And I like lightsabers and I like this and that. But it's like, again, I have like I have friends who only saw Last Jedi once and hate it and yet love Star Wars. It's like, oh, I don't know if you actually have watched the movies, all of them recently or not. And that's not saying people who have, you can absolutely hate anything, but it's like, it's weird. That's like, I think you like the idea of Star Wars almost more than you like Star Wars and stuff, which is fine. But it's but I've been noticing that what you mean. More and more, I think. It's just like people, which is fine, but it's like the idea of Star Wars and, getting action figures and collecting things is almost better than the movies and the content themselves, which is odd.
I do still collect a lot of the toys from Book of Boba Fett, so.
There we go, folks.
The last thing I'll say is we were talking about like how we want more shows like Andor and like Rebels, but Star Wars Resistance was going to be like Rebels, and they canceled it halfway through, and it's tragic. I
didn't see it on the same trajectory.
My one takeaway from this episode is that I want to do a Resistance rewatch, or I guess first watch with you guys, and
I've seen it
and talk about it more because it really is better than everyone gives it credit for.
I'll finish it.
We'll do it. We'll do it at some point. I would like to do Book of Boba Fett too. I would like to do a deep dive into that and talk more about it.
I'd like to rewatch Book of Boba Fett again in full. I would like to honestly re-edit Book of Boba Fett and make it make more sense. That'd be a lot of fun. I'm sure people. I hate when people do that, but like, it'd be cathartic for me.
You know, I don't want to end the show on like a negative note about Book of Boba Fett, but like I was saying about Andor, how you know it's good when the internet's like pretty unified on something. I feel like it was also unified on the Book of Boba Fett.
Correct.
Like nobody's out there shitting on Book of Boba Fett because no one's really defending it. Like I feel like everyone's kind of on the same page of like, yeah, that was a little more of a swing and a miss.
To be honest,
it's so much worse when something is received apathetically on the internet than when it's received with hate.
One last thing I think would be the fact that I think the internet maybe it's not the internet, maybe it's Star Wars, is becoming a little bit more softer, and we are being able to get into a good medium space because we're talking about Andor, which is, you know, universally loved on the internet basically, and then Book of Boba Fett, which is not necessarily hated, but no one's coming to its defense and saying it's the best show of all time, and I think we are maybe evening out as a fandom, which is good. Anyway, that is the Force for Thought official ranking of the TV shows. We'll have to do a catch-up when Ahsoka does come out so that we can talk about it. Obviously, we have a lot of Ahsoka content coming up with the show coming out. You can find us on all the socials and everything as well at Force for Thought. Anything else, guys?
See you, Sammy.
Yeah, see you, Sammy.